Good evening, everyone, and welcome to ATP Live Monday. Thank you so much for joining us today. Whichever platform you're watching from, whether you're on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, you're welcome to ATP Live Monday. I'm so grateful that you are here. So, ATP Live Monday is a program where you get to ask any questions that you have about the health of your children, and I'll do my best to answer them in the next 1 hour. My name is Bini Salaboyede. I'm a pediatrician, and I'm the CEO of Ask the Pediatricians Foundation. And on ATP, Ask the Pediatricians Foundation, we're committed to the health and the welfare of your children. We want to make sure that no child dies from preventable uh, causes of death. So that's what we do through our online programs every Monday, answering your questions on our Facebook group, through our community outreaches in communities, in schools. That's all we're trying to do, and we're very grateful that you are part of it. And we also welcome additional support. So I want to plead with you to share the video, invite friends and family, anybody that you know this program will be of benefit to them. Please invite them. And while we are doing all the sharing and pinning, can you please do me a favor? You can start putting your questions as comments for those on Instagram, on the Facebook page, on the YouTube channel. Just put your questions as comments on whichever platform you're watching from. If you're watching on any of our other Facebook groups, you will have to click on the video so it will take you straight to where I can see your comments. So I'm also just going to do that in another few minutes, just making sure that everybody can see me and they can hear me. So let's just share the videos, and if you are there, let me know you're there, so I know I'm not speaking to myself. All right. So help me to share and invite family and friends to be part of this. And I'm also just going to share the videos to all our Facebook groups so that everybody can see them. Okay, so just 1 more minute and that'll be fine. Welcome. I hope you've had a beautiful Monday. I've had one. Been cool, calm, not too hot, not too cold here. So it's a beautiful day. Right. And I think one more group to share too. So if you are joining, welcome, welcome, welcome. I can see all of you on Instagram. Welcome. Please, please help us to share the videos and start to drop your questions now, so it will be easier for us to have enough time to go through all the questions. So help us to share it now. Thank you. All right. I just want to pin the video as well. Okay. All right. I think we're almost done. I just need to pin the videos to the groups and then we are good to go. And while I'm doing that, I want to remind you, if you look at, for those on Facebook, you can see my background picture. We are currently about to have a major outreach to our school community. I mean, we've seen a lot of instances where there are emergencies, people collapsing on the street, and people are kind of clueless on what to do with them. They just either pour water or crowded around them, or just take pictures or videos on their phone, and such people may even be passed on in the process. Whereas if we all know what to do, like what is the first aid to do in such instances, we may be able to save those lives. So we are starting a campaign. We want to train all our students. We're starting with the young ones, catching them young. We want to train them on how to do basic first aid, and we're going to give them reminder cards. We're going to give the school a reminder calendar. We're going to give them first aid boxes so that when there's an emergency, even in the school community, everybody know what to do. And we hope that the young ones to take the message home, and that way the entire community and the whole society will become, educated on what to do when there are emergencies. So we really need your support to bring the cars, to get all these materials to schools. And we're going to all the schools in Nigeria. Of course, we're going to start gradually. So October, we're going to at least one school in each of the states and the FCC Abuja as well. So we will appreciate your support. You can donate, you can be part of our team, or you can connect us to corporate bodies that can support us. So feel free to help us and to share to donate, to share to family and friends who can donate both home and abroad. So we really, really will appreciate your support of this project. Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to start now. I think I've shared all the videos. Everybody is watching. Instagram, I hope you're there. So feel free to drop your questions. I can see some questions coming in. Okay, there's no share button on the Facebook group, but if you go to the Facebook page or you go to my personal page, you will see a share button there. Private groups don't have share button for those on Facebook, but if you copy the link or you go to our Ask the Pediatrician Foundation Facebook page or my personal page, then you will see a place where you can share the link. So thank you so much for helping us. So let's start. If you have questions, feel free to post your question now, and we'll try and answer them in the next 1 hour that we have. Thank you so much. Okay, I have one question already on Facebook. I can't see any question on Instagram. I hope Instagram is okay. There seems to be, I hope there's no break in my internet connection for Instagram. Let me just check. All right, I think it's okay. All right, so let's just start with Facebook. The first question I have here is from a Facebook user. So if you're on our Facebook and you want me to say your name, you have to grant StreamYard the permissions to share your name. But if you don't, I will only see you as a Facebook user. It's okay, as long as if you want to ask a follow-up questions, you have to let me know the first parts, because I won't know which of the many Facebook users is talking at any point in time. All right, so I said my child of 1 year, 7 months old has not started saying mommy and daddy. Is this normal? Okay, that is not normal. Usually by age of 1 year, we expect a child to say a few words, like 3 words, single words. So it says up and mama some word like yeah when responding to how are you. So we expect the child to be able to respond to their name. We expect the child to be able to say a few words. So sometimes some children are just a little bit slow. You may want to give the child maybe a few more months and then see, but alternatively, you want to see a speech therapist. But definitely by the time your child is 2 years old, if the child is not using words, you have to take the child to see a speech therapist so that the speech therapist can do an assessment, and they can also give you some tips on what we call speech therapy on how to stimulate your child's language. So I would recommend that you get a speech therapist involved. You may want to wait until the child is 2 years old, because sometimes we just want to give the children a little bit more time to see whether they will catch up, and more importantly, also make sure that you are speaking to the child and you are not just babysitting the child with TV and all those kind of tablets and device. We should speak to the children. We should play with them. When you give them something, you tell them the name of what you're giving them. That way, you're going to be stimulating the language. When they want something, don't just give it to them. Give them choices and try to encourage them to ask for what they want by the name. So that's some of the tips on how to promote your child's language development. All right, let's go on. I hope that's helpful for the person. Because you're on our Facebook group, you can also go to our guide section. Our guide section, we have the guides on speech and language milestones. I think that's guide 9. And then we also have a guide on how tips for promoting your child's language development. I think that's guide 4. So just go through those guides with lots of resources and tips for you that you can do it yourself, kind of resources while you're waiting for the child to catch up. All right, let's move on. So for those on Instagram, if you're just joining, please drop your questions and we will try and answer them. I'm currently answering questions on Facebook because I can't see any question on Instagram for now. Okay, all right. Good evening, everyone. Good evening. Somebody said, what can I give to a 2-month-old baby who is purging? Number one, a 2-month-old baby should not be purging at all. So when you say purging, what do you mean? I want to always be sure we are on the same page. So is the child passing watery stools? That's the first thing. And number one, you need to understand that the kind of stools that newborn or young babies around that age pass is not hard. It's not solid like your own stools. The stools is actually a mixture of some solid and some liquid, and that is not diarrhea. That does not mean they are purging. That's number one. Number two, you need to understand that babies pass stools a lot. They can pass through up to 12 times a day, and that is still normal. So that's not purging. So when parents ask questions like maybe it's purging, especially for the newborns, the young ones, I always want to be sure you are saying the same thing. So for me, watery stools or diarrhea in this age will be when the child is passing stool that is completely watery, like urine, like you can't even see any solid particle in it. Everything is sinking directly into the diaper. And that is what we mean by diarrhea, or maybe what people will call purging in a local parlance. But so you really need to be clear to be sure that you are not mistaking the fact that your baby is passing stools 12 times a day to mean purging. Doesn't mean purging. As long as the stool textures are normal, you also need to make sure that you are not mistaking the semi-formed stools that we get in this age group as diarrhea. That is their own normal stools. So you may want to repost your question and let me know which one exactly is your child having. Then number two, your baby should be on exclusive breastfeeding. And babies on exclusive breastfeeding do not have diarrhea, so they should not be passing watery stool. So if you are also not feeding your baby properly, the first thing may be to actually go back, because if you are doing formula, actually bottle feeding, there are risks of those babies having diarrhea, jams, because those bottles are very difficult to clean, and they tend to store germs a lot. And when babies suck them, they're sucking in germs, and so which is why we don't recommend bottle feeding. We don't recommend formula. As if you can do exclusive breastfeeding, that will save you all the stress of diarrhea, pneumonia, and all these kind of infections that babies can have. So Evangel, I will appreciate if you ask your question again and clarify, so that I'm sure whether your baby is actually having diarrhea or not. And do not give anything to the baby. Don't give anything more than breast milk. So don't go and say, I'm going to buy drugs for purging. Don't even try that. So, but I just want to be sure first what your question is. All right. Please feel free to drop your questions, Instagram, Facebook, drop your question, YouTube, and we'll answer them. So the next question is from Tembi Maseko. I think say you have 2 boys, 1 year, 6 months, and then 4 years. They've been coughing, running nose for 2 weeks. The 1-year-old also started vomiting thick mucus after coughing when he wakes up. Should I be taking him to the hospital? I will say yes, because they've been coughing for 2 weeks. I know that usually around this period when children have just started going back to school and they start getting exposed to other children who are having cough and catarrh. So we tend to have a lot of increase in children having respiratory infections. But the fact that they are now is going on for 2 weeks and one is even vomiting, I think that is of concern to me, and I will recommend, yes, that you see a doctor in the hospital so that they can examine the baby, they can listen to the chest, and then if it is viral, most of the cough they are due to viruses, and most of them don't require any treatment, but we also need to be sure there are not other more worrisome causes like pneumonia and bacterial infections, which may require antibiotics treatment. So feel free to get the children to the doctor so that they can have proper evaluation. All right, let's move on to another Facebook user. Okay, today is the day about speech, people not talking. So 1 year, 3 months old is not yet talking. I think I just answered the one of a 1 year, 7 months old. The same thing applies there. So at the age of 1 year, a child should have at least 1 to 3 single words. By the time they're by 18 months, they should be doing short phrases. By the time they are 2 years, they should at least be putting minimum 2 words together. 3 years, they should be speaking sentences, at least 3 to 4 word sentences. So that's what we expect at this age. If you tell the child to go or come, she doesn't respond. Okay, so if a child is not talking, the first thing we also want to make sure is that the child can hear. So it's really in your scenario where the child does not understand or does not respond to things, even though it's responding to sounds. So you need to understand that there are two kinds of speech. So we have what we call receptive speech. That is the fact that the child can understand what you are telling the child. And we have what we call the expressive speech. And that's the child talking, the child saying words. So it looks to me like in your case, both the receptive and the expressive speech are delayed. So even though I know you said the child will respond to sounds of the cartoon and all that, it is still important that your child should have a hearing test. We need to have a hearing test to be sure that the child is not deaf, because hearing loss can be mild, moderate, or severe. And sometimes some children may hear as very loud noises, but they may not hear the conversational voice that they require to develop language. So I would still recommend you take your child to see a pediatrician, or if you have access to audiologists directly, you can see one. They can check the hearing. If the hearing is fine, then they can refer you to the speech therapist, and they will take it up from there. All right. And you said there was a time it says that around 12 months and it stopped. So what you're describing is what we call regression of speech. Regression of speech is when a child has said some words and then the child now stopped saying those words. So that is a red flag for a child who may have what we call autism spectrum disorder. I usually, even though 15 months is a little bit early, but sometimes some children can show signs early enough as well. But if you go online, we have what we call an M-chart, a modified checklist for autism in toddlers. It's a screening questionnaire. Just Google M-chart, or you go to Autism Speaks. When your child is 16 months old, you can go and do a screening there. They will just ask you some questions, say yes or no, yes or no, yes or no. And based on the answers you give, they'll be able to tell you your child is showing high symptoms for possible autism, or your child is not showing any sign, or your child is showing moderate symptoms. And then they will tell you whether your child needs to see a pediatrician, or your child needs to see or your child does not need to see one. So I will recommend you do an M-chart screening when your child is 16 months old. Your child needs to see the doctors will do hearing tests, audiologists, and your child will also need to see the speech therapist. But if we are worried about the autism, then your child also needs to see, in addition to those two, your child will need to see a developmental pediatrician who will be able to do further assessment. Okay, all right. Let's move on. I still don't have any question on Instagram, so I'll continue with Facebook. Somebody said, Doctor, my baby's weight is giving me concern. Okay, your birth weight is 2.2 at 6 weeks, 3.8, 10 weeks, 3.4, 14 weeks, 3.2. Okay, so the child should never lose weight. So your child should not be going up and coming down. That also is giving me concern as a pediatrician. We call that failure to thrive. So I wanted to ask whether your baby was born premature, because your baby's birth weight starts with 2.2. So your baby was already low birth weight. So the question is that low birth weight, because every baby should start minimum is 2.5. But unless your baby was born earlier than 9 months, so which case we understand. But if your child was born at 9 months, your baby should not be weighing less than 2.5 kilos. So the question was, why was your baby 2.2? You didn't tell us your baby was preterm or not. If you are still listening to me, let me know whether your baby was preterm or not, because that will help me to situate your baby's situation. But if your baby is not preterm and your baby is not losing weight, that is a big red flag. That baby needs to go see a pediatrician. So you have an appointment on Friday, great. So please see the pediatrician. But in the meantime, you need to breastfeed this baby exclusively. You didn't tell me how you are feeding your baby, but I want you to be breastfeeding your baby exclusively on demand, at least not less than every 3 hours. And make sure when you're feeding your baby is well attached to the breast and that your baby drains the breast. Okay, so there are two parts of breast milk. There is a fore milk that is watery, and that is supposed to quench the thirst of the babies, and there's the hind milk that is fatty, and that is the part that they actually get all the calories, fat, and that's what makes them to gain weight. So it's important that when you're breastfeeding, your baby is taking both the fore milk and the hind milk. The breast should be empty, and then you switch to the next breast. Don't breastfeed on one breast only. Make sure you are using the two breasts, and make sure you are switching them, and make sure the child is sucking, and nothing less than 10 minutes on one breast and draining the breast. Okay, and your child is sucking very well. No water, no formula, no drugs, nothing, any of that, just breast milk only. But I am happy you're going to your pediatrician, because there may be other medical issues that your pediatrician needs to check. Like your baby's blood level low, like if the iron is low, that may explain why child is not thriving. We may need to give blood tonic, those kind of little things. Pediatricians will be able to work those ones out. All right, so that's what we need to do. But it's good that you have an appointment. Okay, finally, I'm getting questions on Instagram, so let me quickly answer them. Thank you, Instagram people, for joining us. Emmanuel Shadi, thank you. Say good evening, Doc. My baby is on speech therapist program already. Okay, that's lovely. He folds his toes. He's 3 years old. Okay, so I'm not sure what your question is, Emmanuel. You've not asked me any question. You are only telling me information about your child. Your child is having speech therapy. Your child is folding his toes. Your child is 3 years old. What is the problem, or what is the question that you want me to address? Princess Bomisi, I sent you a message on Instagram. Did you get it? I'm not sure we've gotten it, but usually, depending on what your message is, if you have a question about your children's health, you have to go to our Facebook group to post it. That's where we answer questions, because we don't do question and answer on Instagram. Our Instagram is manned by people who are not medical doctors, so you have to post to our Facebook group. That's where the professionals can answer your question. If you have an administrative issue, you have to email us, askthepediatricians@gmail.com. Those are the ways to contact us. We usually don't do a lot of DMs back and forth. All right. Tolu to say good evening, ma'am. My baby was preterm, 1.4 kilos. Okay, so what was the gestational age? So whenever you're telling us about preterm babies, you also have to tell us how many weeks or months was your pregnancy when you had the baby, so that we can calculate what we call the corrected age of your baby, and we need that information to be able to answer any other question about a preterm baby. So your baby is 9.5 kilos. Is she on track? She's one. I guess you mentioned she's 1 year old this month. Even if your baby was not preterm, even if your baby was normal term, at 9.5 is a good weight for a 1 year old baby. Usually it's want them around 10 kilos, but 9.5 is very close. So, but I don't have the what we call the gestational age for your baby, so I can't even say, because even though your baby is 1 year old by the date of birth, your baby is actually not yet 1 year old in a pediatrician's view. Your baby's age has to be corrected because your baby was born preterm. So we have to correct the age to what your baby's age would have been if your baby was born at the normal time at 9 months. So that's why we need that gestational age, so we can correct it and then we can work out the expected weight. But I think 9.5 is good for a 1 year old, so that's good. Princess let me say my 5 year old sneezes like 6 to 7 times when he wakes up in the morning. We don't put on the fan, AC. He sneezes at times, come out mucus, at times doesn't. I have to spray his what? His bed? Okay. His bed sheet with Lysol. Okay. So for somebody who is sneezing a lot, you don't actually want to use a lot of sprays around them, because people that sneezes a lot are actually having allergies. So it's what we call allergic rhinitis. Some people have this tendency to have reaction to things in the hair. So we call it allergic rhinitis, and sneezing, actually very first in the morning, is one of the signs. So you really want to avoid any triggers around them. So I don't know what it is you are using to spray the bed, but as much as possible, you want to avoid anything that will make the child to sneeze them more, including perfumes, including sprays, including insecticide. You want to avoid all those things around the child. So you may have to pay more attention to what are the things in your room. If you are using rug, you may want to change your rug to a carpet. If you have pets in your house, you may want to get rid of them. So you have to think and work out what the child may be, what may be the trigger. Sometimes it could just be the fact that the early morning hair is colder than, and that can trigger her. So if it's not so bad, well, it's part of life. But if it's so bad, you have to see the ENT doctors. They can prescribe some nasal sprays that are steroid based, so it kind of reduces the tendency for them to react to things. But sometimes just taking care of the triggers, what normally set it off, may be the way forward for them. But please don't spray things in the rooms. Don't use bedsheets that have a lot of perfumes. Don't use soaps that smell a lot. Things like that actually can trigger off and make them sneeze the more. So you want to avoid all that. Okay. All right. I think Emmanuel Shadi is completing a question. We saw a pediatrician at General Hospital. We were referred to LASU to see a pediatric neurologist. We gave an blah, 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 blah. He's 3 years old. I want to know the reason for folding his toes. He also had 4 episodes of seizures at 2. So is he still having seizures? Is he on medication for seizures? So is the seizure with fever or not? So the kind of question you are asking is what you really need to see for a full consultation. It's not something that can just be answered. Why does your child fold his toes? I need to see your child. I need to do a full assessment. But I'm happy that you've been referred already to a neurologist. So you should see one. Obviously, there's some neurological issue going on with your child, even though you've not told me a lot, but even the little you've told me, there are definitely something neurological. The child is having convulsion, the child is folding his toes, the child is having speech therapy. So there's something going on in that brain. And I think that is why the pediatrician has referred you to see the pediatric neurologist in LASU. So next year, January, wow, that's a long one. All right, so it's up to you. If If you want to do private, if you contact us on ATP clinics, you can see somebody privately. But if you want to wait as well, you may as well wait, or you can check also whether they can see you earlier in Lutz. I don't know, but those are the two places in Lagos where you can see pediatric neurologists in Lutz. Since you've gone to last week, and it's going to be January. This is September. Not so bad, but if you can check Lutz whether it's shorter appointment, that would be good. But definitely your child definitely needs to see a neurologist, and that's the question we'll be answering. And I think folding of his toes is the least of his problem, really. So because I think the most important thing for us is to figure out what is going in that brain, what is causing the child to have seizures, what is causing the child to have speech delay that he needs speech therapy for, what is going on. Something definitely is going on in the brain, and then we can now work out does he need physiotherapy? Is the child walking? You didn't answer that. You need to tell me that so we can work out all the rest of it. So your child needs to see a pediatric neurologist. So, all right, I will take one more question and I will go back to Facebook. Princess Bumi is saying no pet, no rub, but it does start in the morning when summer now. And I wonder, yeah, you have to work out why. I won't be able to work it out for you because sometimes there are lots of questions we need to ask you. There may be things you do innocently that you don't even think about as the trigger, but it may be. Okay, so it's just that. And like I said, sometimes it's just even the change of the hair, the fact that the morning hair is colder can be a trigger. Sometimes we never know what is triggering them. It's just that some people have the allergic tendencies and they can have those kind of reaction. You don't always need to know the trigger. If you know, it's better because you can avoid it. But if you don't know, that's why I say you have to see your doctors to know if there are treatment that they can give to kind of make it better. All right. Okay, Instagram. Let's go to Facebook. We'll come back to you. Please don't go away. We'll come back. The next question is good evening. My older children have been down with malaria throughout last week and were on admission in the hospital. I want to know if I can treat my 16-week-old baby as a preventative treatment since all the siblings have been treated. Okay, the answer is no. All right, we don't treat malaria in advance. Okay, there's no point. So wait. If the child has malaria, then you will treat. If the child doesn't have malaria, don't treat. So before we used to do all this kind of medicine, we used to even give what we call Sunday medicine and all that. I'm sure some of you remember that, but we found out that they don't really help. So we don't treat malaria ahead. We are hopeful that we are going to have malaria vaccine very soon. And that is what you're going to be giving to children like your 16 weeks old. From 3 months old, they are going to get malaria vaccine. So hopefully that will protect them. And we are hopeful before the end of the year or maybe early next year, we should have the malaria vaccines in Nigeria. So your babies will be able to get the malaria vaccine. But for now, don't treat them for malaria. Let them have the malaria. If they have the malaria, then you can now treat the child. We want our children actually to be exposed to malaria kind of because we want them to develop some level of immunity, because if your children don't develop malaria and don't develop the immunity, then they are going to have the severe kind of malaria like those who live abroad when they come to Nigeria. Whereas people in Nigeria, most of us have malaria and we still go to work, we still do everything because we have some form of immunity. So even when we have malaria, it's not like very severe malaria. But once you start giving your children so much malaria drugs, then they will never have opportunity to develop that immunity. So that's why we don't do that preventive treatments anymore. But hopefully when we get the vaccine, we can give the children the vaccine and then they will develop the immunity and then that will be better. All right, let's move on. Adebukola, good evening. Dr. Bemi, my 3 weeks old baby poo every day, like 3 to 4 times a day. I'm so worried. There's not really any reason to be worried. That is normal. Okay, so babies can poo up to 12 times a day, all right, every day. And that is perfectly normal. So don't worry, just keep breastfeeding exclusively. All right. Somebody said my 32 weeks preterm daughter was twitch when I gave birth to her. Okay, I'm not sure I got that. And it stopped for some time. It started again. Are you saying your baby is twitching, having seizures? Okay, what I really need you to do is to do a video of that twitching, and you have to show a pediatrician, because we really need to be sure whether the child is having seizures. And especially if it's happening, is it happening during sleep, or is it happening when the child is fully awake? Is there any high rolling up? Is the child conscious or unconscious when it's happening? Those are the kind of things that will help us to know if a child is having seizures or not. So if a child is having convulsion or seizures, they usually are not aware. Their eyes may roll up. If you hold them and try to stop it, it won't stop. And it may take a few seconds or 1 minute, and they come back to themselves. You just know that something happened. It has a beginning, it has an end. The child is not themselves. That will be more of a seizure. But if a child is sleeping and just shake their hands a little bit in their sleep, it's nothing to worry about. So we won't worry about that. So, but we really need to know which one. And the best option is, these days all of us have camera phones. Just take a video of it and show your pediatrician when you go for your next follow-up, or you can just go before your next follow-up, or you can even post the video on our Facebook group. We will look at it, and then we'll tell you, okay, this is a seizure or this is not a seizure. It's very important for us to know which one, because your baby was preterm, and preterm babies, we worry about them having brain injuries and developing convulsions, epilepsy. So we really need to know. It's very, very important that we know which one it is. Okay. Good evening, Evangel. You're welcome again. Somebody said your baby was born through CS at 37 weeks. Okay, are you the one that asked question about the baby that was 2.2 kilos? So if your baby was 2.2 kilos at birth and was 37 weeks, that baby was what we call small for gestational age. Your baby was born at normal time, but your baby was small because your baby should have been 2.5. So that again worries me. Why was the baby small? Were you sick? Were you having high blood pressure? Were you having diabetes? Was there any problem with yourself, or was there any problem with the baby? And that may also be the reason why the baby is still not gaining weight now. So this baby really needs to see that pediatrician, and they need to check everything. They need to check there's no hole in the heart, there's no problem with the blood level, there's no problem with the thyroid, all those things we normally check. So when you see your pediatrician, those are the questions you should ask. Why was my baby small? What was the problem? So that they can explain to you. They may know already because they know your baby. I don't know your baby. So, but they should be able to answer that question. And sometimes some of these problems will not be solved by feeding the baby. So it's not a food problem. It's a medical problem. So if your thyroid hormone was low, or we need to give thyroid replacement. If the iron is low, we need to give those. So those kind of things will not be solved by just giving more food and more food. It is about addressing the underlying medical issues. All right. Okay, so Evangelist, okay, the baby is on EBF, okay, and the stool is a bit watery, some water, something. So I have a feeling your baby is passed. If it's like a goosey soup kind of stool, that is normal for a baby on EBF. It's not purging, it's not diarrhea, it's nothing. Just keep breastfeeding the baby and don't worry. Your baby is biting your nipple. Your baby is biting your nipple because your baby is not well attached to the nipple. So your baby should not be sucking on the nipple. Your baby should be sucking on the areola. So if you look at your breast, there's a part that shoots forward, that is the nipple, and there's a black part beyond that, that's the areola. So when you're breastfeeding your baby, make sure that you put both the nipple and the areola, that black part, you should make sure everything is in the mouth of the baby, so that when you are breastfeeding, you should not be seeing that areola, so you shouldn't be seeing that black part. So that means your baby is well attached to the breast. So if your baby is biting on your nipple, you are not breastfeeding properly, and you are going to have nipple sores very soon, and then it's going to be double problem, because baby is biting, because baby is also not getting breast milk. So when baby suck on the nipple, nothing is flowing, because that's not where the milk is, and baby gets frustrated and bites on you. Then you also get frustrated because you are feeling pain, and it's a vicious cycle that doesn't help everybody. So make sure your baby is well attached to the breast with most of the areola. Before you start, don't just let baby grab the breast by themselves. Make sure their mouth is open wide and you can push as much of the breast into their mouth. that is the way to do it. So if you do it that way, then the baby will suck on the areola part, then the milk will be gushing into their mouths, and baby will be happy. You will be happy. You won't have pain. You won't have any biting or sore nipples, and baby too will not be biting you because milk is flowing, and baby will also be gaining weight. Well, everybody will be happy. So, breastfeeding is 99% latching. The latching must be correct. The attachment of the baby to the breast must be correct. If not, we are all going to have this trouble, and then that's why some people get frustrated with breastfeeding. But once we get the attachment correctly, you'll be fine. So if you go to our Facebook group, even on our Facebook page where you are now, you can watch uh the attachment of the baby to the breast. There's a breastfeeding video of that. All our breastfeeding week videos, very lovely. You can watch them. You will see how to attach your baby to the breast. Breastfeeding should be simple, should be painless, should be enjoyable for the baby and the mother. So just check on that. Your baby is not sitting at this time. Your baby biting on you at 2 months is poor attachment of the baby to the breast, not any teething. All right. Good evening, Doug. Thank you for your love towards us and our children. So grateful. Oh, thank you, Gloria. Thank you so much. All right, let me go back to Facebook, Instagram people before I lose time. I think we answered the questions. Okay, Manuel Shadi, your baby is not having seizures anymore. He's walking. He's by himself. Does everything right. Okay, that's good. So the folding of the toes. When does the baby fold the toes? When sitting, when walking? Is baby walking on the tiptoes? Because I really need to get that your information correct. Okay. So feel free to post more on that. So if your baby is tiptoeing, it's a different thing from a child who is folding the toes, because child is walking. When he walks, what does he do with those toes? That's a question I'm trying to ask. All right, let's move on. About Luwari, if you're lower. Luwari, that's a nice name. My 2-year-old had cough catarrh, took her to the hospital, go they ran a test, she's on medication. Okay, but your 3 days later, your 5-month-old had cough and catarrh to being 4 days now. His mouth is warm to my nipple when he's sore, but she's talking well. Took her to the hospital. The results say she has malaria. She was given drugs. My question is, can she take them? Because I always read here that babies, okay, I guess your question has been cut off, but I think I know where you're going. So exclusive breastfeeding does not mean if your child is sick, the doctors cannot prescribe drugs. A lot of mothers get that wrong. So we're not saying that if you are exclusively breastfeeding, you cannot give drugs to your baby if a doctor prescribed the drug because the baby is sick. So what we're saying is that don't give drugs. You don't, maybe some of you don't know, but there are mothers that give drugs to their babies routinely. What I call like Jogba syndrome. So once the baby is born, they have this big basin and they have every drug under heaven. They have the paracetamol, they have the gripe water, they have the nospamin, they have Bomoro, they have vitamin C, multivite, they put everything in that big basin, and every blessed morning after they give him birth to the baby, then they make sure they give all those drugs. Those are what we're saying you should not do. Don't give all those drugs to your baby at all. Don't. Just breastfeed them alone. But if your child is sick and in the hospital, a doctor now say, give this drug for 3 days for malaria, or give this drug for pneumonia, or for this infection, of course, you can do that. That does not mean your baby is not on EBF. That is a doctor treating your child for a specific condition, and that will not last more than 3 days, 5 days, 7 days, depending on what the illness we're treating is. But we're talking of people that will give drugs. Some even give ABBA drugs, like all those concussion. They go to all this more, and they will make herbs, and every day they also give it to the baby. Ogun, whatever, everything they give to the baby. That is what we're saying you should not do. That's what, if you are doing that, that is no longer exclusive breastfeeding, because all those things you're giving to your baby is not necessary, and they even are dangerous. So, but if a child is sick, of course, please, the child can be treated by a doctor. But we're saying don't give what people will call routine drugs. Don't give anything that has not been written prescribed by a doctor. And if there are some of you go to all these private hospitals that are how will I put them, that they are not, maybe some of them are even not having good doctors, or they are not even having real doctors, and they will tell you you must give this drug, you must give that drug. Don't. Okay, anytime they give your child a drug, there must be a reason. So you ask them, what is this drug for? If the child is not sick, the child does not need any drug. A child who is born does not know how that health issues, that child does not need any medication. That child needs only breast milk. That's all you need to do. So that's what we meant. I hope, Abuluwari, your question has been answered. Somebody said another thing. I noticed I'm not producing enough breast milk for her. If you're not producing enough breast milk, you can watch our videos on how to increase your breast milk supply. Breast milk production is demand and supply. The more you breastfeed your baby, the more your milk will flow. The less you worry and anxious, the more your milk will flow. So it's you have the capacity to produce enough breast milk for your own baby. So don't start worrying and panicking, because when you do that, you are going to actually stop producing breast milk. So what you need to do is to have that confidence in yourself that I am capable. Even a mother with twins can exclusive breastfeed. So there's no reason why you cannot exclusive breastfeed your single baby. So what you need to do is to relax, eat well, rest well. You should just breastfeed and rest. Don't go and get yourself involved in unnecessary stress and worry and anxiety, because that will actually reduce your breast milk supply. So ensure you attach your baby well to the breast, feed your baby well, let the baby suck well on the breast. The more the baby suck, the more the milk will flow. Is a demand and supply mechanism, and it's an hormone-based mechanism, and that is why worry and anxiety will dry up your breast milk. Whereas if you're relaxed, thinking nicely about your baby, your milk will flow. It's just, that's how it works. All right, we are running to the end now. Your baby's weight is fine. I'm not sure what your question was. Was it the same baby? Okay, it was the other baby you were asking about. Okay, but you're not giving us the information about the 3-year-old. Okay, but your question was about your 1-year-old. All right. I don't know who this Facebook user of birth weight of 1.3, current weight of 6 kilos. If you are posting from our Facebook group, you have to write complete statements. If you don't write, it doesn't make sense, because I won't know who started. There are many Facebook users I'm saying of my hand, so I don't know which one you're talking about. So feel free to, the person who posted a birth weight of 1.3, current weight 6 kilos, is not making any meaning. So ask complete questions and tell me what you want me to do with that information. All right, Adebukola, good evening. Material. Okay, I think I've answered your question, Adebukola. This is your second time of asking it. Somebody said my 2-year-old developed noisy breathing while sleeping at night. What could be the cause? Well, you should have to go see a doctor, preferably an ENT doctor. We need to check whether there's anything blocking the airway, like adenoids and tonsils, enlargement. So they need to check and make sure. Sometimes you could just even reposition it, make sure your baby sleeps properly on the back, their face to the side, nothing is blocking the airway and all that. But just let it, really, the child is snoring, just let them check your baby's airway for you. All right, my 4-month-old baby is always scratching her eyes, rubbing her face. I complain here, the reply given does not apply to her. What was the reply given first? Because I really need to know what reply we gave that does not apply to her. So can you let me know what that reply was, so that I know whether, so I don't repeat the same reply, because you have made up your mind that our reply does not apply to your baby. So usually if a baby is itching their eyes, we worry whether the child has what we call allergic conjunctivitis, especially if the eyes is also red or brown, and it's happened a lot. So we need to, that's what we normally think first. Or sometimes it could just be what you are applying, especially those of you that like to put oil on your baby's head all the time, and the oil is dripping down their face and it's irritating their face, and then they itch and all that. So the most important thing is to know which one we're dealing with and to avoid what can be avoided. For example, if this is the oil, please just stop the oil. Maybe it doesn't need more than 1 drop of oil on the scalp once a day. They don't need you to be pouring oil per second, all right? But if that is not the case and the child is always itching the eyes, are the eyes brownish, are they having discharges and all that, then you need to see the eye doctors. We need to check whether the child has allergic conjunctivitis so that we can deal with this. So that's that. Habuluwari, you didn't ask any question, but I've answered your question. I'm not sure what you mean by your question or not being answered. You were the one that was saying whether should you give your baby the drugs or not, and I've explained to you. Unfortunately, your question was too long, so Facebook cut it off. So if you still have a question, feel free to repost the question, but I have a feeling I've answered your question already. All right. Somebody saying my 10 weeks old baby has been passing greenish stool for 2 weeks and the people smell bad. How are you feeding your baby? That's the very first question I want to know. If you're asking us, so your baby should not be passing greenish stools if exclusive breastfeeding, because greenish stools we tend to get this in babies who are not getting enough breast milk. All right. Okay, so that's the first thing. So make sure your baby is well attached to the breast. Make sure you are breastfeeding on demand, and make sure that you are not giving your baby anything else. No drugs, nothing else. Make sure you're not giving anything else. There's nothing wrong with baby's stool smelling. I wonder why people ask questions about smell of stools. Your own stools also smell, so I don't know. Stools are meant to smell, so there's nothing wrong with that. So what we worry about is the color on the texture. Is it watery? Is it greenish? Those are the things that we don't want. So it should not be watery. It should not be greenish. It could be semi-form, some parts solid, some part liquid, or like a goosey soup kind of picture, but it should not be greenish. So you need to make sure that your baby is well attached to the breast and you are breastfeeding exclusively and on demand. And you have given anything else, drugs, water, whatever, stop those ones and give breast milk and breast milk only. So like I said, if you're asking questions on the Facebook group, make sure you put all your posts in one comment. Don't be putting them bit by bit. I won't know how to link them up together. Put all your questions in one comment. It will make sense to me. All right, thank you. Somebody suggested that my son may be tongue-tied. He's not speaking clearly at 5 years, 9 months. That's not true. So if your child is not speaking clearly at 5 years, 9 months, please see a speech therapist. It is not the job of a teacher to make such diagnosis. Teachers are to teach. Teachers don't make diagnoses about health issues. So I will recommend your child to see a speech therapist to know why your child is not speaking clearly. It has nothing to do with tongue tie whatsoever. All right, so that's that. All right, let me just whether I have any more questions on Instagram and then we'll wrap it up. All right, okay. Emmanuel Shadi is still giving me more information. It works. Okay, yeah, he said he's not tiptoeing. He folds his toes once in a while lying down. I don't know why folding his toes once in a while. Why should that be a problem? I think it would be a problem for us if his toes are like permanently folded. I have a feeling you are not really describing what you want to tell me properly, but I'm happy you've seen a pediatrician, because the pediatrician must have seen your baby and must have worried enough to send you to the neurologist. So it's better you should see a neurologist. So a child should not be folding their toes at 3 years. Even by 6 months, they should not be making a fist. So if your child is fisting or folding any part of their body permanently or almost 90% of the time, it's a sign of what we call increased tone in the body. So that means the child is hypertonic, the child has increased tone, and like I told you earlier, that is a sign of something going wrong in the brain, like of a brain injury, which also may explain why your child has seizures and all that. So which is why your child really needs to see a pediatrician. So most babies are born with their hands are fisted, but by 4 to 6 months, those hands should be open all the time. So if your baby's hands are always still folded at that age, we worry about hypertonia. So that's that. And the toes as well. The toes should not be folded like continuously. So once in a while, everybody can fold their toes, but they will open it. It should not be like permanently folded. So if that is happening, then that child may have hypertonia. So what I'm suspecting is that there are lots of things going on with your baby which needs to be clearly explained to you. It's not something I can do on a Facebook group. I need to see the baby. I need to examine the child myself and see what you are talking about and see whether there's hypertonia or not. Ask you several questions. What happened when you're pregnant? What happened when your baby was born? What health issue has your baby had? That can explain. Your baby may need to have a brain scan down the line, all those kind of issues. So you definitely need to see the neurologist, and then they will take it up from there. The person you saw at the general hospital is not a developmental pediatrician. He's just a pediatrician. Uh, no, that's not the job of the it's not the job of a speech therapist to tell you your child is delayed or not. That's the job of a pediatrician, but a developmental pediatrician, not a general pediatrician as well. So don't worry, you can see the pediatric neurologist and they will take it up from there. But the all your questions, all the things you are trying to get an answer to is beyond the scope of a live session. Your child needs full assessment face to face with a neurologist or a developmental pediatrician. So definitely there's something going wrong, but that's what I think what you are trying to ask, get an answer to what's your child's diagnosis, which we cannot answer just by a Facebook group conversation. Yeah, so if your child is having features that suggest autism, your child needs an autism assessment. That is a developmental pediatrician. I'm not sure a pediatric neurologist will answer that questions as well. All right. Okay, let me just finish with Facebook. So if, like I told you, if you want to have a private session, send us a message on our WhatsApp and then we can tell you how to do that. But it's beyond Facebook. It's beyond the live session. Okay, we've answered this one. Okay, whoever is sending all this piecemeal information, sorry, we were not able to help because it has to make sense, and I can't see all your different. It doesn't make sense. So make sure you ask in one post. What are the factors that affect fetal weight? What causes microsomia in infants? Okay, this one is a it's a textbook question kind of a thing, but there are many things that could affect weight, including right from the mother's own weight. Some people tend to have big babies, it's something genetic for them. Sometimes it could be mothers who have diabetes. The babies could be very big, and that's why they usually, if your baby is looking big, they will do diabetes screening for you in pregnancy and all that. There are also medical conditions that could make babies to be big. We call them some syndromes like Beckwith-Wiedemann syndrome. There are syndromes that such babies are very big and all that. So of course, so those are some of those factors. But I think the most important thing, that answer is not really for you as a mom. For you, what you really need to know, if your baby is big, you need to ask your own pediatrician what is the cause in your own case. So all those other stuff are just academic stuff for you. So that's that. Somebody saying, as well, he can maybe start taking Golden More. The Golden More manufacturer said they make it for children from the age of 3 years. So that is the age, 3 years. So for every product, always check the age. They always write it on it, the age group that can take it. And Golden More is 3 years. The one in children, is this 3 month interval or 6 months? 6 months interval. And it's from the age of 1 year. From the age of 1 year, every 6 months. That's it. The next question, this is the reply. Sometimes babies rub their hearts as an habit, but it could be an allergic reaction. Yeah. Yeah, the answer is correct. That's the exact answer I just gave you too. So, but you said the answer does not apply to your baby. What doesn't apply? So that's what we tell you, that it could be an habit, it could be an allergic reaction, especially if there's redness, and all that. Yeah, yeah. So the answer is correct. So what does not apply? You say it doesn't apply to your baby. The answer is perfectly applicable to your baby. And that's the same answer I just gave you now. Okay. All right. Okay. So or maybe so it's okay. Sometimes we give an answer. Maybe you feel like it's not okay. That's also okay. But feel free to give us a feedback and to say why you think it's not okay or why you think it's not applicable. Then it will be easier for me to address it and address the part that you think is not applicable. Okay. You don't always have to agree with our answers, but I think we try to give as much answers as based on our experience and evidence possible. So if you don't agree, feel free to say, okay, this is why you don't agree. And then maybe it may make it clearer for us. Obviously, you don't think your baby's situation, okay, you could just have told us maybe your baby doesn't have the red eye, your baby doesn't have the rashes and all that. But that does not mean your baby cannot have an allergic conjunctivitis, which is what I think may be going on with your baby. But feel free to feedback and let me know what is it that you are still worried about, so I know how to, because we can't read your mind sometimes, so we really need you to tell us the feedback so we know what you want us to really address. So sorry about that. Okay, somebody said, what's the treatment for colic? Treatment for colic doesn't really have any treatment, but it's a good thing that it's going to go away. It's very early for a 3 weeks old to start having colic, but it can happen. So just try and keep the baby calm. Some babies like to be snuggled. Some babies like you to move them up and down. Some people use Infacol. If your baby is very gassy, it may help, but most times colic will go by itself. It doesn't require any specific treatment. But if you want to read more about colic, the last person, just check our Facebook group. We have an article on colic that you may find very useful. All right, thank you. Somebody say, what factor affect fetal weight? Oh my goodness, this person. So like we said, this could be the genetic. It could be even the mom is eating too much and all that. It definitely can affect baby's weight. So that's the job of the gynecologist actually, to monitor your baby's, to monitor your pregnancy, your baby, the growth of the baby in the womb. And that's why they measure your tummy every time you go for antenatal care, and they check your weight. And so for example, we don't expect you to gain more than 10 to 12 kilos throughout your 9 months of pregnancy. So if you are gaining too much, then they know that, okay, that's too much. Or if you are getting too little, they worry. So they'll be able to advise you on that, and they will teach you what you need to use. Those are things they do in antenatal clinic. So it's not really pediatric, but it's okay. We all work together. All right. So it's all of them. Okay. I think we've answered the question about greenish poo. Yeah. So make sure your baby is sucking very well on that breast. So obviously, baby is not getting enough breast milk. Okay. And also sometimes what you also eat may affect your breast milk and affect the baby's stools. So make sure you are also not taking drugs or taking things that could be affecting baby's stools as well, which is also another possibility. But I will really go for make sure you are breastfeeding well. Make sure that when you breastfeed, the baby empties the breast. So, because some of us, we just give 1-2 minutes of breast milk, and then that's it. The baby has only taken water, and that will be why the baby looks as if it's having greenish stool. The baby has to empty the breast, including the breast, the fore milk and the hind milk, which is the creamy part. That creamy part is important, because if you're only giving the fore milk, then that will be like taking water, and that will explain why baby will have greenish stools. Make sure you empty the breast. Now when you breastfeed, your breast will feel like flat and then you go to the other side. But if you are not feeling that, then that means you're not breastfeeding properly. So if you feel your breast full just before you breastfeed, sometimes you won't be leaking. Then when you baby suck everything, then you will see that breast go very flat or very soft. Then you go to the next side. So that is it. So you need to just make sure baby is sucking more. There's nothing. Most babies make all these grunting noises and all that, and move their body up and down when they are passing gas or stool. There's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly normal. It's nothing to worry about. Okay, our time is up. Okay, so your baby doesn't have red hair, maybe it's brown or have rashes. Okay, I noticed that whenever she's trying hard to sleep, she scratches so hard. So when your baby is trying, if your baby is only scratching during sleep, that is also the baby fighting sleep. So baby does not want to go to sleep, and that is the habits they were talking about. So some babies, when they want to sleep, because they don't want to sleep, they keep rubbing their eyes because they want to stay awake. So there's nothing to do about that. Just try and help them to settle into sleep. You can wear them like mintins, something like those little like gloves. You wear it so that they don't hurt their eyes in the process. It's just baby trying to fight it. But if baby does it during the day, because if it's the allergic one, it won't be only during sleep time. It will happen in the daytime, in the every time. So that is, and then like I said, the white part of the eyes, you will notice that it's not like very white. It will look very, like grayish, brownish. I don't know whether you've seen people with brownish eyes. If you go on our Facebook, I'm sure you'll see a picture like that. So then you know that that is what we see in allergic conjunctivitis. We actually have a group discussion on allergic conjunctivitis you can read. But if it's only when your baby wants to sleep that he rubs his eyes, then that's a baby who is just trying to fight sleep. And that is something which we don't expect to cause any problem, because it should not go on for too long, because after all, the sleep will eventually catch up with them and then they go to bed. So that should be fine. All right. So, okay. I think that's it. I think we've answered all the questions. I'm just checking Instagram. Okay, everybody's question has been answered. Okay, just to remind you that if you still have any question, no problem, but you can go to our Facebook group, Ask the Pediatrician Facebook group for children, or ATP Family for adults, and you can post your questions there from Mondays to Saturdays. Some people will always ask me every blessed Sunday why they can't post on Sundays, and even yesterday some people were still asking. I post a post to say Sundays are no post days, blah blah blah. People still ask under that post, like, why can't I post today? I can see that sometimes people don't read posts, they just put their own comments there. So I'm trying to tell such people, some of them are listening to me now, that Sundays are no post days. Feel free to post your questions Mondays to Saturdays. So, but of course, if something is an emergency, please don't post an emergency question. Go to hospital. Please go to the hospital and we will see you there. So, but feel free, if you have questions beyond live session, go to Facebook group, post it there, and we'll try and answer them. And please remember to support us. So let me post our outreach. Please support us. We need your support. Nothing is too small. Even 1,000 naira will go a long way. Even it's 10,000 naira, 100,000, 50,000, 1 million, 5 million, 10 million, 100 million. We are happy and able to take it from you. So help us, and also share it to your friends abroad, inside Nigeria, outside Nigeria. We will appreciate your support, and we account for every single couple that you give to us. So just know that we are very accountable. We're on global giving, and you should be on global giving. You have to be accountable, because that's the largest fundraising platform for non-profits in the world. So it shows you how accountable we are. So all the money will go strictly into the project, not to pay volunteers, not to pay any money, strictly for the project. So please donate. Help us, as you've been giving to you, give back and help us to make our society a better place. Thank you so much. I'll see you guys on Thursday, where I'll be doing my usual teachings. Until then, I want to say have a wonderful evening, and it is bye. 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 Sorry, I didn't put off my